Septic, well, and water quality inspections are common on properties outside city limits, so in rural areas. The inspection can be paid for either by the seller or the buyer, depends. And the person who pays for the inspection or orders it has basically the rights to seek any kind of relief if the inspector didn't notice something, didn't acknowledge it in the report, and later something else was discovered. So, it might vary whether you as a buyer want to pay for it or the seller. The seller does it, the inspector misses something, and a year later you're in the home and discover there's a problem. You really can't go after the inspector from a legal standpoint. Typical inspections cost about $450. It includes running water through the septic system in order to fill up the tank. That way the inspector can see that the pump is pushing water out, and it kind of determines how fast the flow rate is out to the drain field or the mound system. So they also look, of course, to make sure the tank isn't crumbling, that it is holding water when water is in it. It's more of an inspection than your every 3-year inspection that the septic pumper does. It's more of a functional to make sure it's actually working, where the septic pumper basically just inspects the tank to make sure it isn't collapsed or have holes in it. They test the well flow rate to make sure that it's pulling water up at a significant pressure. And they're also looking for, any construction type problems, whether it's a septic or the well, things that aren't up to code, things that are degraded, aren't working properly. Now, just because it isn't up to code doesn't mean it has to be up to code. It just has to be built correctly at the time that it was installed, unless there's a safety or structural problem and it's not functioning properly. And then there's a water quality test, and that essentially is looking for things like arsenic, nitrates, chloroform, which is bacteria. They want to make sure that all of those things are at acceptable levels and wouldn't cause any kind of harm to the individuals drinking it. That water test is a sample that they take and send off to a state lab overnight to be tested. So there you go, septic, well, and water explained. Typically, that's one of the first things in the accepted offer process to get inspected first, along with the home inspection. Both of those are done before the appraisal, and the reason being is they won't order the appraisal if something comes up in one of those inspections and the buyer or the seller isn't going to be interested in pursuing the offer any longer and want to cancel.